Good morning. I finally got my camera working and I've got a new little microphone, so hopefully I can get some recording going. So I'm going to share today. This is the first piece of Home is Where the Heart Is quilt. So I've been a bit slow on this one, but I am in the rhythm now for sure. So this is nearly done. I do find that I keep going back to pieces as I go to add bits and pieces, but I'll just take you through a few of the bits and pieces on here. As you can see, the main piece, the piece that I started with, was this vintage embroidery. I then did some background layering with some bigger pieces of fabric. Some are just fabrics from my stash. Some are doilies and bits and pieces of doilies and other vintage textiles. I see some Kathy Holden fabrics there. And then the third go is when I put on all of this different embellishment. I tend to see lots of this particular trim. I got this at the Namble Collectorama, I think 2 years ago, and I got meters and meters of it, and I don't know what I'm going to do when I run out because I think I use it in everything. I've used some little hexagons as frames here. This was actually a piece that my mum had already made and had given me in a bag of her goodies. As were these little cutouts that she had, I think as part of a Margaret Sampson George quilt that she was doing. I deliberately looked for some house themed or home themed bits and pieces when I was in Maryborough and Hervey Bay recently with Mum. We went on a bit of a op shop and quilting adventure, and I got this awesome little house here, which is a button, and this one as well. One is from a shop in Maryborough, a quilt shop in Maryborough, and the other is from Ben Houghton's in Howard. If you ever get the opportunity to drive through Howard, south of Bundaberg, Ben Houghton's is an experience that you cannot miss. They have fabric piled to the ceiling, and you just never know what you will find. We've got some more Kathy Holden fabrics here, and then the rest is just embellishment, generally with cotton. I use these threads because I just pick them up at Vinnie's, so I tend to go with what I've got at the time. I always particularly look out for coloured crochet cottons because they're less, you see them less frequently, but I tend to just work with what I have. I usually start my projects by threading a whole heap of needles in all different colours, and then I tend to just pick up whatever colour's next and go with that. And then I do have in here also a whole heap of silk ribbon. The first quilt my mum ever made was a silk ribbon embroidery quilt, which was like the hardest thing you could do. And so I do have a heap of these left over from that adventure. So I do use these as well. I just thread them through my big fat needle that I use and just pull them through using my thread. Have I used any on here? I'm not sure. Oh yeah, just a few bits and pieces there, for example. Just adds a different kind of texture. So I think this bit's nearly done. I've created a few little houses. This is a block I started for the Mini 9 patch challenge, and then I quickly realised there was no way I could keep up with the Mini 9 patch challenge, but it was okay because I'd made about 30 and I've used them in lots of other lovely little things. Another one that I have ready to use from the Mini 9 patch challenge, where did I put it? I've stitched, I think, 9 of them into a little block to actually make like a bigger house. I don't know where I put it, it'll turn up. So on my workspace, I tend to have everything that I'm using at the time. I have a little box of a little tray of things that are already cut up and little bits of doilies, because I use every single square centimetre of a doily. And sometimes even this like little piece is exactly what I will be looking for. My advice with your doilies, cut them up because you get a different perspective of them, of how you can use them. Cut the middle out, give yourself a little frame or a corner, cut stuff up and use it. It's much better than it's sitting in a drawer. I mean, these were originally a flower shape, but they're great to use as a bit of a border. And then this is a center out of a doily. So that's my tray of little bits. And then I have some little buttons and bits that I want to use. Again, these are a few things that I found. When there's no place like home, I think of Home is Where the Heart is where you have blue and white china. So this quilt for me is about anything that evokes that kind of feeling of being at home. In here, I've got buttons. I just found all the heart buttons I have, so I will use some heart buttons along the way. I think I've got 3 here. I will have a heart button somewhere on each page. Then I've got these fabulous pots from the shop in Maryborough, I think, as well, the quilting shop in Maryborough. So they're big terracotta pots that I'll use, and these little terracotta houses, as well as these hand painted buttons. And I think it's all these little bits and pieces that really make the work pop. Bird houses. So that's my jar of hearts and houses. So that's there ready to use. And then over here, I've got more needles, big thick ones, and then just a whole heap of Suffolk puffs and individual little hexagons that I think I might use. I've got some things put together, and then I've got any sort of jewelry items that I might use. So I've kind of picked up little posies. I love these two. I picked them both up at Vinnie's. I'll probably find a home somewhere. This little koala guy, and then some little hanging things. And of course, always look in the badge and the brooch box under the counter at an op shop. You never know what you'll find. This little shamrock, my husband's Irish, so that little shamrock will find its way onto the quilt somewhere. And then finally, I've got this little tray with little bits and pieces, again, to use, to not waste. So I've got some little individual, not fussy cut, but nearly messily fussy cut. And then this is a little jar of trims and stuff that I'm using at the moment. Sort of went through my stash and thought these are the ones I think I might use. And so they're here at arm's length reach as well. So let's have a look at piece 1. As you can see, I think it's done. I think we're pretty good. I might feel the need to do some more stuff here and in the background here. I think that needs a bit of texture. You can see the bits where and just here, they're probably the bits that I will go back to and add a bit more texture. I don't like just the fabric with nothing. It stands out to me because every other square inch is covered. So that piece is finished. So I started these on just plain. I'll turn it over so you can see the back. Haha, look at that mess. People who are really good embroider are probably horrified at this point because this is what it looks like on the back. So I do this, I go from one spot to the other because it saves me having to thread another needle, because threading needles is not my favorite thing. And that's what it looks like. So this will have a back put on it after it's all joined together, so you won't see any of this. So I'm not the least bit worried about any of this. Obviously it has to be a backing that I can't see through. And you can see how I've attached this. I've just done big fat stitches all the way through. I've done colours that blend into this because I didn't particularly want it to stand out. I wanted the actual needlepoint to be the feature. So you can see how I've just big fat stitches all the way around. They are visible from the front, but I've generally gone around over the edge with other things. And then across the middle at various points, I've used some matching coloured thread to make sure that's stitched down. And I guess that's the key thing. There is nothing going to move on this. This is so nailed down. This little guy I made because I just had a moment where I needed to make it. It's just from a doily. It's actually a little brooch. If you've seen Menagerie and Nautica, I do have a lot of brooches that I use. I just like the idea that it's a wearable work of art, and it adds that little bit extra of dimension as well. And I've just seen that I've got a pin there, so I'm very good at leaving pins in. I'm going to get that out while I remember. So when I stitched this on, I had some sort of idea about the whole quilt when it's together, that I will have somehow have some sort of ribbon or tie or bow that will thread through the whole thing, but I won't be able to do that until all the pieces are finished. That's piece 1. As again, I'm going to do some more textured stitching here, 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 and up in the green. And again, I am pretty led by, I will just pick up, what have I got? I've got green threads, so I'm going to start up here. And I will look at the patterns of the fabric. I'll look at what's happening around. It may be that I echo this line of the curves here. That would make sense with the green. And I kind of just make that decision on the hop. I'm going to put this one away because that can be done upstairs at night time in front of the telly now that everything is stitched on. And I do tend to just sit with them on my lap and go over, and I'd find bits like this and fill them up because I want it all to be like this, where there's not one square centimetre that is not textured. Piece one. So then this is piece two. So as you can see, I am on the second, I finished the second layer, which was these background fabrics, and I'm now on the adding the embellishments and the depth to it stage. This is the first time I've worked with a quilt block that I made rather than an embroidery, and it is different. I'm struggling with this big bit of blue. I very rarely, I don't think I've ever used a fabric with no pattern other than a doily. So this is a block that I got out of this wonderful book by Suzuki Kaseko. So she has got the most amazing fabrics and blocks, and if you haven't seen her work, I just love that she has got these very traditional sort of blocks with this really outrageous fabrics and fabrics with big patterns that she's cut into little pieces, which kind of is a bit of an epiphany. So this is a house pattern from in here. I've actually made two blocks from this book. There's that one, and sorry, this one. So there's a mixture of vintage fabrics. This is a doily, and new fabrics. This is actually a an oven glove that I got at Vinnie's with the ticking, and I've cut that up, and then some of Kathy Holden's fabrics there. Some beautiful spotty fabric, vintage fabric from somewhere, and then a doily to create the little garden edge and the light, the lamp at the front. And this guy is actually a genuine feed sack that my mum gave me. And then this is Suzuki Kaseko's own fabric, and the rest is either fabric or stuff from my stash that I did. And again, these house patterns have blocks in here, very easy to follow. 74. She just gives you a scale, so you kind of just work. She's got some fabulous house blocks in here. And as you can see, that's the one I've done. And I just love that. I love that real wonky kind of house fabric, house block, sorry. So that's that one. So yes, I guess the difference in this block is it doesn't have all the texture of the needlepoint. So I do also have this needlepoint on there, which is probably saving it for me at the moment. I love this. This is one of the things that inspired this quilt, the whole theme of this quilt. Home is where the heart is. And it was in a battered old square of timber, which I pulled apart, soaked it because it was filthy. And so now the job is everything is sewn down. So everything is sewn down that you see. That was a big job. I made this little guy. It's a little brooch. Again, there's one of these little 9 patches from Repro Quilt Lovers Quilt Along, one of the mini 9 patches, and I just love this little one with the tiny bit of this little temple in the middle. So I've stitched that onto a bit of cardboard with a tiny bit of batting, give it a bit of depth, and then just stitch some flowers and a bit of a vine across the top. So at the moment he's just sitting here because that's where I see a big gap, but whether that stays there I'm not sure yet. So the stage that I'm up to now is the next layer. So I sometimes do a lot of stitching that then gets covered with other things, but that's just how I work, so I don't worry about that. I think that this piece definitely needs some more darker colours, probably a bit of brown. I've used this in the original, in the last photo I put online. I think I used this as the border. It's a doily that I cut up yellow, but then I find if I take a photo of my work and have a look at it, it gives you the best perspective of it, and it was just too insipid. It didn't make this bit stand out enough as an individual block. So this is actually from an apron that I got at Minnie's. This is the little apron. It was $1. How cute is that? Look. And I have cut off the sides. That was the sides. I've tea dyed it and reused it there. And look at this for $1. So I've got these lovely little dancing ladies that I can also tea dye. And I've also got this, which is the, wherever it is, I've got the tie, the waist ties. And you might have seen the yellow one I used, it was the bow in the last one. So I got 2 of these for $1 each. Look at that. This one actually has more dancing ladies. They're $1 each. So I will use every ounce of that, and then I've also got that lovely cotton gingham. And so this is where I'm up to. So I'm going to try very hard to figure out how to download and upload and reload and do all the loading that I need to do to get these videos up to date. It is Sunday in the middle week of the school holidays, and I'm off Wednesday down to Melbourne with Mum to the Australian quilt show. So I'm hoping to get some videos up between now and then. So I'm going to sign off now and go and dig through my stash, and then I'll come back and show you. Look at this. How cute is this? Which is why you need to save every little bit. This is off this piece of fabric. And when you look little, you can see, okay, the cow's half cut off, but I will still use that, and it will be just tucked under something. And I like the idea that when you look at my work, you can look at it a number of times and still not see everything. I think that's what creates interest. Well, the other gorgeous thing is this. Have a look at that. That came off a doily the same day that I got the same day. Where is it? Where did I put you? Aha, here it is. Every now and then you just find gorgeous things. So the same day that I got those little aprons, I got this doily. And so you just need to think outside the box. So I've cut. Home is where the heart is. My house is always full of cane baskets and flowers. So I just saw a little basket and thought, yes. So I've just cut that off, literally cut through there and stitched it on with my beautiful straight stitching. So I've also got that little guy to go, and I've got all this lovely edging with the contrast and colour, and a couple of little really beautiful crocheted elements there. The same day I got this. It's beautiful. It's just really fine. I don't know what sort of fabric it is. It's like a really fine linen. And these 2 little guys, which probably I won't use on this quilt, but it kind of put an idea in my head for my next quilt. It might be something to do with chinoiserie or an Asian blue and white thing. But that's the next one. Let's focus on this one. So these are here to use as well. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? So I'm not sure how I will use it yet, but it's there waiting for me, and this guy is definitely being cut up to use. So I will crack on now and find some goodies and come back to you.